Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, with my co-host, JC.
Wendy, it's a pleasure. I got to hit you with a stat real quick, right here in the beginning, Wendy.
Go for it.
Understanding key U.S. employment laws, it's actually crucial for employers to avoid legal troubles. According to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, in 2022, there were 67,000 charges of workplace discrimination filed, resulting in $439 million recovered for victims of employment discrimination. Non-compliance with laws such as the Fair Labor Standards Act, the Family Medical Leave Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act can lead to significant legal and financial repercussions for employers. Wendy, where are we going now?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm going to turn this over to our guest, Adam Kemper, managing partner of Workplace Law Firm. Hey, Adam, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I have a question. This is a loaded question. What, in your opinion, what are the key U.S. employment laws that may get you in trouble as an employer? You know, we only have about 5 minutes, so wrap that up real quick.
Well, the simplest way to look at this is if you look at, the hiring of an employee and the retention of the employee as part of an employment life cycle. Okay, it begins at the hiring phase, then there's the employment phase, and then there's the offboarding phase. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you think about it like that, there's really like 3 phases. And at each one of those phases, there are laws that apply to each one of them. So at the hiring phase, do you have your hiring processes in a compliant fashion? And many people say, what do you even mean by that, hiring processes? Well, I always say it starts with the application, the job advertisement.
Yep.
Is your job advertisement in compliance, or does it say some boneheaded things like we pay at a level below minimum wage, or we only want men for this position, or, no disabilities are permitted, or, no religious holidays are observed. If it says something like that, that can get you in trouble. Okay. So paying attention to every document that your company sends out, including at as soon as the job advertisement phase. And in the hiring phase, are you saying boneheaded things in the job interview? Or are you coached on what you're supposed to say and what really you're not supposed to say? So that all needs to be examined to make sure that it's being done in a compliant way, right? And then things like background checks or drug screens. There's really a lot to it at the pre-employment hiring phase. All of these requirements have processes that you need to follow, like under the Fair Credit Reporting Act and anti-discrimination law with respect to drug testing and different considerations. And then you move on to the employment phase. And the biggest thing I always look at is, are you paying people the right way? Okay. And it's really simple. Okay. There's really 3 things that you have to do. One is keep records. Keep records on how you pay people and their timekeeping, and that's it. Okay, that's record keeping.
Right.
The second thing is minimum wage. Pay at least minimum wage for every hour worked. Okay. The third thing is pay overtime.
Right.
And this is a 52-week requirement. This is not you can have an exception in 1 week or an exception in the other. This is all 52 weeks. What a lot of companies do is they rely on the exception to those 3 rules more often than you and I would probably like to see. Right?
Yeah.
So start with the rule. And then when you get into the world of the exceptions to those rules, make sure you get it blessed by someone like myself, another practitioner that can give you legal advice on, can you rely on one of these exceptions? Okay. So that's the employment phase. And obviously you want to focus on keeping the employees happy, keeping them around, the positive employees around longer. And then the offboarding phase, let's say you have to terminate somebody, layoff, resignation, retirement, what have you, that is probably another pretty significant area where you have to make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's as far as complying with all the employment laws. Because more often than not, people will sue after they leave the organization. Okay.
Yeah.
How are you actually handling the termination? And one of the biggest defenses to all of this, and it's not even a legal defense, is, are you actually nice to your employees? Mm-hmm. And as simple as that sounds, a lot of people overlook that.
Right.
You know, they have leaders within their organizations that are frankly not nice. And being nice can go a long way because people will think more positively about that employment life cycle that we just talked about.
Yeah, I absolutely.
Negatively.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all of that. Like, I have so much to say about this. Biggest thing I want our listeners to hear right now is not only do you, whoever's listening, need to be trained on all of this, your managers need to be trained on all of this. And then on top of that, anybody who's involved in the interviewing and recruiting process needs to be trained on this. Anybody who's involved in the walking the person out the door, filling out paperwork, giving them their last check process needs to be trained on this, because how they treat the person, even if the manager or the HR person was nice and kind, how everybody else treats the person who's coming in, leaving on medical, all that matters. So you really need to make sure for your key roles, your management roles, payroll, even the receptionist, they need to understand you can't ask the pregnant candidate about when their baby's due. I mean, you can, but you really shouldn't, because then it's going to be assumed that it's being taken into consideration and blah, 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 blah. So, but it's a lot. Managing employees is a lot. I have so much more to talk to you about too, but we do have to wrap up this session real quick here. The one last thing I do want to say, even if ChatGPT tells you that you can do XYZ or ABC, please listen to a lawyer, not ChatGPT or Google or Gemini or anybody else. With that said,
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening to episode 2 of our 5-part series on staying ahead of the legal curve with your race for talent. In episode 3, we're going to be talking about a very hot topic, marijuana classification. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.